giving us a teeny bit of background about what brought you to the project, and also state your role on the project. And because this is Zoom and inherently awkward, I will call on you like a teacher so that everyone knows when to talk. So I'm just going to call you by your screen name, okay? And I'm going to start with Kelley Van Dilla because that seems like a great place to start. So Kelley, take it away.
Thank you so much, Miller. Hi, my name is Kelley, and my pronouns are they, them, theirs, and she, her, hers. And I am the director, writer, and I played Ashley now.
Wonderful. And I guess we don't have to ask what brought you to the project. Leah, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Leah Putnam. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I was the dramaturg on Let Go of Me and got pulled into the project through Jeremy and connected with Kelley and just both really gravitated towards the story, but also towards how Kelley wanted to tell the story and the kind of risks Kelley wanted to take. And that was really exciting for me. And here I am now.
And if you all have not had the opportunity to read the online study guide, you should do so directly after this talkback, because right now, of course, you're paying attention to the talkback. But Leah did an absolutely fantastic job. So thank you so much. Olivia, why don't you go next?
Okay, so hi, I'm Olivia Ramirez-Weaver. And actually what first drove me to the project was my dad. He was originally auditioning, and so he just kind of pulled me along and was like, hey, do you want to try this out? And I'm like, well, I was kind of playing Minecraft, but sure. So I read the script the next day, and I was really drawn towards how real and the constant struggle between the sort of idealistic idea, well, words are fun, kids, about what you sort of should be and all the ways in which you try to be that, but also are not, and are sort of working through that, and coming to an understanding that you're just not that. Nobody is.
I love that. And your role was young Ashley, correct?
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. And also I think that our sort of world motto for the pandemic year should be, well, I was kind of playing Minecraft, but okay. That's pretty much like my motto for the whole year. Excellent. Thank you so much. Carrie, will you go next, please? Oh, wait, you're on mute.
There. Hi, I'm Carrie Moran. I designed the set, which was only a small part of this production.
But a very important one nonetheless, ma'am.
Exactly. She took the words right out of my mouth. Jeremy, will you go next, please?
Sure. Hi, I am Jeremy. I use he, him. I am the interim artistic director at Live Arts, and I was fortunate enough to be the associate director on this. And Kelley knew that we were asking for submissions from our community, and they emailed me the script. And the I guess, would you call it the original version of the script? And then I read it, and we had a lot of conversations, and I could not resist the opportunity to be involved. And then my further involvement as associate director was when we decided that Kelley was going to be acting in the show as well. And so we felt that more support would be helpful. So.
Wonderful. We're going to return to that topic in just a moment. Matea, will you please take it away?
My name is Matea. I use she, her pronouns. My theater teacher at school originally told me he thought it would be a show I would be very interested in, and I was excited to work with Live Arts and to work with a director who had written the play themselves before I even read the script, and then that was amazing too.
Thank you so much. And will you just remind me what exactly your role was on the show?
I was a part of the chorus.
Thank you so much. And Sharon.
Okay, I'm in my car. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So a friend of mine sent me the audition information for the show. Thanks, Marlena. And I was really excited. I read the chorus audition bit and just got super jazzed about how the concept felt, and it was very abstract, and was really excited to throw my hat in the ring to try and be involved. And so I was a part of the chorus with Matea, and I also got the chance to be in ASM, and I also got to help build some of the sets. So I disagree with Carrie that the set was a small contribution, because yeah, I'll stop talking.
Because I worked on it, so it was amazing. No, it was amazing. It was beautiful. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. It's really exciting to have the opportunity to talk with you about this project, which is unlike anything we've ever done at Live Arts. It's such a great opportunity, I think, during this sort of strange season, to be able to really delve into this work that was not something we really could have created live on stage. It would have been completely different. And so to that end, I actually kind of want to start there. Kelley, I'm going to direct this question at you, but I think everybody who feels like they have something to contribute should please jump in. Certainly Jeremy might have thoughts about this as well, and others of you. So Kelley, can you give us just like a nutshell history of kind of like the idea to this reality? Because as Jeremy was sort of referencing earlier, there were various versions of the script, and I think there was sort of like a sense of how it would be filmed, and then there was kind of what ended up on the film. And I would say a lot of the questions prior to the event were about like, how did you decide what would be live, what would be filmed? I know that's a really big question, so you can jump in and just eat that elephant bite by bite, as the expression goes. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. The script, I wrote the first draft in May 2017 at the behest of a mentor of mine who said, here's this playwriting competition. The deadline's in 2 weeks, write a play. And I sort of just word vomited out this thing. Luckily, they extended the deadline a few weeks. And that was it. It was sort of a first draft. I didn't edit it. I didn't change it really at all. I just sort of put it all out there. And I feel very grateful to have a mom who has always encouraged me to tell our story and to use our experiences within my art, whether that's painting or film or theater. And so that was the inception of the play. It's sort of a spiritual successor to a 10-minute short film that I made back in 2015 called Let Go, Mother. And then nothing really happened. I didn't win the playwriting competition. And I shared it with some people, but I just sort of forgot about it until I heard about Live Arts looking for new work. And so I shared it with Jeremy and was really, really excited to, I would say, even adapt it, not even write a second draft or something, but really adapt it because the circumstances were so different. And I had seen some theater performances on Zoom that I didn't connect with, and I saw some that I really did connect with, and I was really excited to tap into this medium to reflect what we're all going through. And so I think that the process of rewriting and working with Leah over the course of a couple of months really felt quite empowering, and it was a lot of really happy coincidences or accidents or reflections that once I understood how we would need to stage this at Live Arts to maintain COVID safety and have different spaces for each actor, suddenly then that became a tool to reflect how we are disconnected in pandemic times and even outside of pandemic times. And it was just a layer upon another layer upon another layer. And that even continued throughout the production process, different people bringing different ideas. I did not have any idea of what the set would look like. I didn't think about cardboard. I didn't think about paper. That became very integral to the entire thing, this act of creation, self-reflection. So I think it, to me, felt very organic and very collaborative throughout the entire process.
Would anyone else like to comment on what surprised you in terms of like what you imagined it would be like to be in the show after reading the script, and then what ended up happening, or like how you collaborated with the material. Go ahead, Olivia. I think your hand is halfway up.
Yeah. If it's okay if I share, I don't want to okay. Um, so personally, I thought that it would be like more of like a filmy film, if that makes any sense. So Miss Kelley was like, it's going to be a movie. So I assumed that meant that you were going to like, like film it like in a park or something, or like at a house. And so I visualized it like very literally, I suppose. Um, so the scene where I smash things, I thought that would be like, like going out of the house and like, going around the house and like tearing up some pillows or something. And and personally, I think that once it's the way that I realized it was going to be the way it was, I think I liked it better because it was more the um, sort of aura of incompleteness and like not being finished. It's still a work in progress, and that's life, and that's Miss Kelley's struggle with Miss Daphne. The constant struggle between like, like trying to connect, but also trying to distance and trying to protect. And so only when you admit the fact that you're incomplete, you can truly let go.
Wow. Okay. Talkback's over. That was amazing. Perfect summation. That was unbelievable. Okay. Chorus members, I want to hear from you a little bit about what you imagined your role would be based on reading the script, because when Kelley and I had our initial conversation, I was like, talk to me about the narrative function of the chorus. What an interesting idea. How are you picturing that happening? So how were you all picturing sort of your role as chorus members, and how did you feel like what was the process like of feeling your way into the way that eventually ended up being filmed? Either Sharon or Matea or both at the same time. Jump in.
I'll say something. I think at first, my initial impression, because the chorus was originally broken up into, chorus 1, 2, 3, 4. And so you kind of got the sense that these are kind of like ancestral voices, advice givers, aspects of someone's personality who's lending in their thoughts. But I thought that they might be assigned based on an already like, maybe Kelley's idea of who these people were in Ashley's psyche. But when we had this first rehearsal, we just kind of all threw ourselves in and just started saying lines, and then characters started kind of coming out of that. So I thought that was pretty, and we did that over Zoom. And so I thought what would have been very impersonal over Zoom ended up becoming very personal, and I thought it worked out very well. Matea?
I definitely agree a lot with Sharon. I think a lot of the being able to make the chorus members ourselves was not fully what I was expecting, but I don't really know what I was expecting. I did my audition in one evening after thinking I would want to be a part of this to like get it in, get everything finished, and I was only able to really like skim the script. So I was just like ready to go with whatever was being done. And I didn't think about any internal family system ideas until I actually chatted with Kelley, which I thought it came together beautifully and was amazing.
Thank you so much. And we will welcome at this time Marty Moore. Marty, woo! Marty, would you like to just briefly introduce yourself, say the role that you played in the production, and tell us a little bit about your journey in coming to the show?
Oh, I'm Marty Moore. I played Daphne. I've known Kelley since they first moved here, I think. So I've known them for a while, which drove me to audition for the show. I know how talented they are. And yeah, so it was an amazing experience all around.
That's so cool. I did not know about that background. Love that. And Marty, we were talking a little bit about the difference between the sort of the evolution of the project, the collaborative nature of the way the cast and crew worked with the existing script and how it sort of was one thing on paper and then became another thing. Do you want to, sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but I wanted to say, do you want to talk a little bit about what you might have expected the process to be like based on reading the script versus how you feel like it was manifested?
Yeah, I'm reading the script. I was confused, but I loved it. It was so full of heart and love and honesty that I trusted that it would come together just for those reasons. I was very curious how the filmed parts would work, especially with the chorus, and was just amazed how beautiful those came out and how powerful those things were. There were several times though when I was very confused and Jeremy would say, you know, well, do you want me to explain to you how this is all going to come together? I'm like, I won't understand. You know? So I just trusted the process and trusted everybody and how they it was such a great team all around, you know, from people working on the set, from writing, directing, filming, sound, you know, I just trusted everybody. So, and Olivia.
Speaking of Jeremy, can you and Kelley speak a little to the process of collaboration? Like, I think initially Kelley was going to maybe direct and cast someone else. How was the decision made that Kelley would take on the role of also acting? And then what was the conversation like about sort of bringing in a different director? And also, as Marty is saying, like in terms of if someone had a question like about the overall vision, who took that question? You know, or like how did that work? Like that sort of balance.
Kelley, do you mind if I start? So yeah, Mill, you hit it on the head. When we first started, Kelley was going to be directing, and we were going to cast someone else in the role of Ashley Now. And you know, auditioning is always a process. And so through that process, we did not have a huge pool to begin with. We had a couple of people who while they were wonderful, it just didn't it didn't feel exactly right. And so it had kind of been maybe mentioned as a maybe, like maybe this, and then one day Kelley just kind of called me up, or I think maybe sent me a text, and they said, what if I just do it? And we had talked about who, you know, what that would look like, about, you know, adding an associate director to help support that role, particularly in the scenes where Kelley would be acting. And that was not just to provide sort of outside artistic eye and to help Kelley as actor, but also to provide that sort of intermediary for Marty, who was generally acting opposite Kelley. Because even with an excellent relationship, there is a power dynamic between actor and director. And so if you are actor and director, it can be really difficult for your fellow actors to engage with you directly. And so it was just able, you know, the initial intent was to come on in a supporting role. And one of the things that was so gratifying about this whole process is I feel like everybody got to have their fingers in the pie, you know, that it was an ongoing, constant, true collaboration and conversation. And it was never like, hey, I have an idea. No, we don't have time for that idea. Let's just move. I don't want to hear your idea. It was always, okay, what's your idea? Or can we talk in a minute? And I think that is really, that starts with Kelley, that they brought that energy into every single interaction around this. So I think what our conversations looked like, it was one of the more joyful collaborations I feel like I've ever been involved in. And that's saying quite a bit for the weighty nature of the piece. But there was a lot of joy in rehearsals, a lot of laughter in rehearsals. You may have noticed Olivia's kind of a genius, and so like there were a lot of really long, like really intense, deep, like conversations that happen in rehearsal, that like it felt like it uplifted the work every step of the way. And it was just really wonderful. That's how the collaboration was.
Kelley, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to express gratitude for Jeremy and for everything that he just shared, and say that that resonated a lot with me. And I think for me, it was, as an actor, it was very surreal at times. I felt like my mind was split in three. Whenever I was in a scene, I was the actor, I was director, and I was remembering what had actually transpired in my life. And to have the support of Jeremy to empower me to step more fully into just being the actor in those scenes was really helpful, and was for me very healing and positive, and in some ways felt like working through trauma. And so the whole process to me is one that I have expressed to folks as one of joyful collaboration as well.
That is great to hear. One thing I'm curious about, Kelley, your background is in film, or that is one of the many things that you do. Jeremy, I'm going to say my impression is that is less true of your background. Is that fair? I don't know.
Yeah, I've dabbled in film, but I'm a theater specialist.
Sure. Okay, perfect. Love that. Okay, so I guess what I'm wondering is, like, the visuals are so striking. And Carrie, I'm sure you were part of that, and Shri, the costume designer, I'm sure was part of that. Like, can you all talk a little bit about how you developed the visual language of the resulting film, and like, how did the editing process work? Like, who did that part? And yeah, I just want to know a little more about that. And maybe Kelley, you can start talking, and then other people can jump in.
Sure, yeah. I think this is also a little bit reflective of the previous question, in that I think Jeremy's intent to step in as associate director, and also the weight of the conversations we had when I said, hey, what if I play Ashley now, was just to save me a little bit from the mountain of stuff I was continually piling on myself. Because I was also filming largely, I was also editing largely. Kathleen, who is not with us in this talkback, was an incredible support and showed up so consistently and so joyfully for all of our filming. I could not have done this without her, from just a filmmaking perspective, not to mention all of the technical show running, everything. This would not be possible without her. And I think a lot of it was really fly by the seat of our pants sort of instinct. We didn't have a lot of time. We were very limited in many ways, and I love those limitations. I think they really constrain us in ways that make us be more creative. And so I think, like, the visuals of the dance with the chorus, because we had to film everybody separately, except for Olivia's parents, who are in a family pod, so we could film them together. Because we had to film everybody separately, basically, then that led to the duplication of individuals within the editing process. That led to sort of layering images on top of one another. That was also a byproduct of, I don't have enough time to really delve into this and play with this. I could spend an entire month just editing the dance sequence. How do I do this in the few hours that I have? And so a lot of sort of just, I'm going to do it and I'm not going to worry about it, and here it is. And then editing, and even throughout tech and throughout the shows, continually editing and refining, since we didn't have what is one of my favorite parts of theater, which is we have a run through. Now let's start to tweak it. Let's start to fine tune and really choreograph and orchestrate the flow of the piece. We didn't have the luxury at that time. And so that sort of process happened within the editing throughout tech and dress rehearsals in the first few performances. I've talked for long enough that I forget where I am in answering your question, so I'm going to stop there.
You did great. Maybe I really want to hear Carrie Moran talk a little bit about your sort of contribution to the visual language?
Okay. Well, when I read the play, I thought a good portion of it is a memory play. And so I started to think about, what do you hold on to? And then I started to think that this is actually a play about someone who is creating themselves without a solid template because of the mom's mental condition. So it's about making oneself. And I thought, so you want it to be handmade. And we are also in a pandemic, and we are also, there's a lot of stuff going on. And we also had to do the set 3 times for pandemic precautions. And I thought, how can we do this and have the handmade look and support the essence of the work? And so I wanted to use cardboard because it's easy to build, and it shows this handmade nature of things. And also, it's something that can be projected on. So if you recall some of the scenes, there are projections on that cardboard set. It needed to pick that up really well. But for me, and I said this yesterday when we had the postmortem related to the production, that it was the stuff that happened accidentally that is really the stuff that I think made the show what it was. And so I have a little production meeting anecdote, which is, at one point we're having the production meeting and Kelley says, are you going to paint the mural? And I kind of freaked out inside, and I thought, the script was very clear about the mural being a portrait with little animals coming out. And I'm thinking, and I had asked, does this exist? And Kelley said, yes, it exists. And I'm thinking, cool, we're doing all this film stuff. We just get the original. We make we film it, and then Olivia has a brush, and that's it. That's all we need to do. And then the next meeting, Kelley comes in and it's sort of like, I guess I'll paint a mural on Saturday. And the mural made it. The mural made
so beautiful.
the show. Because the mural and the creation of this self so supported everything else, and also the visuals during the voicemails of that brush and the sweat and the mess. And I just thought that which happened somewhat begrudgingly and somewhat amazingly and incredibly artistically was almost a found object, a found moment, a kind of an astonishing development from a whole bunch of, well, in part me just saying, no, but Kelley saying yes. And I think it just really strengthened everything so beautifully. So, I mean, there was that. And then I think a lot of things that happened with the costumes that Sri brought to it. I'm particularly fond of the making the bird scenes with the feathers. And I just thought they were stunning with the movement and the feathers, and Kathleen kept fanning so that the feathers moved. And we didn't see any of that at the beginning. We saw, I think, something way more structured and way more ordinary. So it's kind of amazing what you can do when you kind of bounce off one another.
The power of yes and. So, okay, we've touched on this subject a couple of times, and it actually came up also in the questions before the event. Can you all talk to me? And I actually want to hear from Annie and everybody. Theater in COVID times, COVID restrictions. Did they drive you crazy? were there like amazing surprises that were enabled by things you had to do around COVID? Would you ever do a show this way again willingly? I see Marty with her hand up. Marty, please jump.
I'll speak to the amazing things that happened. Uh, Rehearsing on Zoom and not having, especially with a role like this that's so intense and so emotional and sometimes very ugly, to not have somebody here right next to me, like took all my self-consciousness away. So I was able to just be in the role and not worry about what other people thought about me or anything like that. Even in the performances, same thing. There was, having an audience is great, but also that not having an audience is great too. You can just literally be in the moment and not think about whatever is happening around you, except for the Bluetooth not working. I mean, the downside is that, I never got to hug and hang out with Olivia and Kelley and, and, for real, and that was very hard to not bond in that way. But as an actress, I felt like I really grew because of it. So that was fun. That's all I got.
Love that. Ensemble or Olivia or Kelley, like any of the other actors, do you want to speak to the experience of COVID times theater? Or not? I don't know.
I am happy to speak. I also want to
go for it.
Space for Olivia, if you want to talk.
Well, I mean, I don't want to like take up too much of the.
No, please.
No, it's fine. You can, if you'd like. Oh, okay. Well, I think the highlight of the piece for me, even though this is really stupid, was actually the fact that I got to tear down a bunch of paper and stuff. That was really fun. But in terms of a more artistic level, so that was definitely an advantage. I get to tear up stuff. That would be very hard to achieve in a live action thing. Personally, I am, yeah, so it did make things a little awkward because, I was like talking to air, so it was like, like how do you be loving and afraid of air? So that was kind of hard, but also an interesting challenge. In terms of like how do you imagine that something's there, how do you visualize it, and yeah, I guess that's kind of it.
Thank you. Yeah, and I also want to draw attention to that paper scene. Olivia choreographed her own dance for that, which was absolutely stunning. And I think that the paper scene, like that's another thing. I had no idea what it looked like in the script that I wrote, and Carrie had this amazing idea to make it its own space, and also with the epilogue to have it be its own separate space as well. And so I'm very grateful for those ideas that came from other folks as well, and really heightened the piece. I think for me as an actor, it is a wholly unique way of performing that I have never done anything like it. I imagine that maybe it's kind of what motion capture work for a video game is like, or something of that nature. To be on a stage and to be utterly alone and to be looking out into a black space. For me, I was in the Founders, and so I was looking out into this wide expanse, or I was actually looking at the back of the mural. But then to hear Marty right here, so close, even through the technical difficulties, felt like very connective to me. And it was also, it felt very sacred and special. I love theaters. I love empty theaters. To me, being in an empty theater is unlike anything else. And then to be able to share that with Sharon and the one or two other people we had for Lighthouse, and then Jeremy up on the balcony for tech and some of the performances, it felt like instead of a backstage space, like the entire thing was backstage almost. And I don't know, there was something very special. I'd love to hear from Sharon what it was like for you to share that with me. It was almost like we were a team, and then of course Marty and Eric and Olivia and Liz, we were each our own little ecosystem or community or bubble or something like that. It was so much fun, even through the difficulties.
Yeah, I agree. Like, what a cool experience. I don't think I could have ever imagined something like that. And it, yeah, you have like multiple little pods of people that kind of like have each other's backs, which was like teamwork, but also socially distanced teamwork. Very COVID, very cool. A lot of struggles, was not easy, but was a very unique and very thrilling experience. Yeah.
Matea, do you have anything to add?
Well, I personally, I've never filmed anything before. I thought that was a super exciting and new experience. And I thought it was really interesting to get to watch that too. Because obviously I've never watched any theater I've been able to do. And I thought that just was a really special thing to get to do.
That is a great way to think about it. It's so true. When you're in a show, you might see the video later, but the video always pales in comparison to how it was in your mind. So it's cool that you guys got to watch pieces of it while it was happening. Leah, I want to bring you in. So Kelley was saying earlier, sort of alluding to a collaboration that you were you a reader for the script? Like, can you talk a little bit about your role in supporting the production?
Sure. So Kelley and I first started talking about Let Go of Me. Actually, it was on my birthday. So this was back at the end of November, around Thanksgiving. And at that point, I think, Kelley, remind me, it was about 70 pages to the script at that point?
Yeah, I think that's right.
About there. And majority of the scenes were there, the chorus members were there. But between November and then March, so much just kind of got added and edited. And so I was kind of there as a wall for Kelley to bounce off of. So I was reading through kind of new drafts, or we would have a weekly meeting where we would kind of talk through ideas, and we would end up down these rabbit holes sometimes where we would just spin through like, how many levels of meta theatricality can you go through before you lose the thread? And then we would see, well, we hit that point. Now let's take the step back and trace where we got to, and like, how does that potentially work for the show? And so that was pretty much the role that I played in terms of collaborating predominantly with Kelley, and then just from a dramaturgical perspective, working towards the idea of this incredibly unique personal story that has such universal resonances. How do we touch on those universal resonances while also making sure to honor its particularity of, of being a personal experience, and open up that emotional empathy with the audience when it comes to something like the study guide as well.
Yeah, that is a perfect segue to one of the questions that we got in the pre-event chat, which is about like doing work of such an autobiographical nature. Kelley, we talked a little bit about this in our interview for the study guide, but I think I would just like to say, I think you did a really nice job of layering in sort of sounding boards all along the way, like to bring in a Jeremy, to have a Leah to help read through things. Like, that seems really smart. But there I can't really imagine acting scenes from your life that were so deeply personal and transformative, with bringing other people into your experience. I don't know. Can you talk a little bit about, like, this piece is just so unique and so kind of uniquely emotional and autobiographical in nature. Discuss.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's been a reckoning for myself, because it feels very natural to me to explore my own life through art, through film, through theater, through visual art. And sometimes I feel self-conscious. I think I'm taking up too much space, or I'm being selfish and really only focusing inward on myself. And by and large, a lot of the responses have been like, thank you, and thank you for being so generous and sharing this, and so vulnerable and brave. And there's a bit of a disconnect between like the story I tell myself internally and hearing that externally. I think a friend of mine sort of checked in and said, like, how are you? Are you okay after the performance? And my response was, I am better than I've ever been before. I think this process has been so joyful and healing to me. I think that the hardest parts were the voicemails. So the voicemails, by and large, are direct transcripts of voicemails my mom left me. I recorded them off of my phone and transcribed them, and then edited and tweaked a little bit to make them fit into the story, combined characters, that sort of thing. And at first, when we started this process, the voice of my mom and my memory of her voice and Marty's voice were so vastly separate that it was a little bit difficult for me to step into that. And we had conversations about, do we use the voicemails themselves as like a tool? And Jeremy and I talked about that and decided not to share that. And Marty and I don't think we ever talked about it during the process, but we talked about it a little bit afterwards. Is that correct, Marty?
Oh, wait, Marty.
Yeah, they were very challenging. We did talk about them afterwards. Yes, I didn't want to hear her voice because I didn't want to emulate it, because I felt like this was me playing Daphne, not me playing Kelly's mother. And they had to be different. So but the voicemails were very challenging to do, because they were so real and so raw, and they were very difficult to hear in the Bluetooth while we were performing. I sometimes had to take it out, because I would go back into those spaces of those emotional spaces that I had to go to create those voicemails. So they were challenging, and very bold of Kelley to do them and have to relive that kind of emotion over and over for a long time, so it was interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, it was also strange because like Marty and I rehearsed them very little, and then we did them and we recorded them, and then they were done essentially. And so we didn't work through them in a more traditional theatrical sense. We didn't perform them every night. And I remember sitting in tech or dress rehearsal and getting ready for the epilogue scene and listening to the final voicemails, which for me are some of the most difficult ones, and thinking, oh no, what have I done? I just like never thought I'd have to listen to them again. I could just do them and be done with them. And then I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to listen to them every performance now. And like Marty, sometimes I would have to take my Bluetooth piece out. And by the end, like the gap between hearing my mom's voice and hearing Marty's voice, which are still very different, it sort of vanished for me. And I think some people even asked me, and I think even asked you, Marty, was that you, or was that actually my mom? And I think that's only possible because we didn't emulate her, because we didn't try to recreate it. We throughout the entire process, very important for me to, as best as possible, give this its own life and let it breathe in its own way, and not try to be a one-to-one recreation of my life. And I think that work with Leah, the voicemails were not part of the original script. The more recent Manic episode that delved into a lot of these scenes did not happen when I wrote that first draft. It happened 2 years later. And I think it was through us figuring out those meta layers and tracking that I realized that we needed some sort of consistent thread throughout the piece that really mapped out my mom's transition into a manic episode and the confusing nature of, is she actually manic, or what other health problems, medications are going into this. And so for me was a tool to understand her experience better, which I think is very important to center in this story.
Jeremy, do you have anything you'd like to add just in terms of directing someone, acting something that's autobiographical, or associate directing?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So when working on, I try to treat it much like I would treat any other piece of theater. And so there's the two lines to walk, right? So when you have a brand new work, the first time a piece is done on stage, it is about finding what the playwright is reaching for, right? And so that's what the job of a director is for that opening, that very first production of a play. With something that is really autobiographical, I've always found it to be useful to create distance, and be intentional and caring about doing that, but doing it. And so very often in our conversations, we would be specific about saying, like, like, Kelley, I'm going to speak to you as your associate director, and I would like to talk to Kelley, the playwright. And let's talk about this, or I want to talk to actor Kelley, or director Kelley, or whatever it is. But so I think naming the thing that we're trying to say, I feel like we were all really good about that, really intentional about that. And I think that was something that helped us along the way. And so getting distance was easier that way.
That makes total sense. We're kind of coming to the last 10 minutes or so, and I would really like to open it up for you all to ask each other questions, or just if there's something you were really hoping would get included and that hasn't been covered yet, please jump in. I know, again, like there's weird Zoom awkwardness, like you don't want to talk over anyone, but just like, let's just go for it. And also participants, if anybody watching, if you have a question that hasn't been covered, if you'd like to pop it in the chat, I'd be happy to ask it.
Okay, I want to see if I can say something. Let me see if I can say this. When Kelley mentioned, so when I found out that I was going to be AS, I thought, oh my gosh, I've worked with them as the director, but now not, like, Jeremy talked about switching roles between director, actor, blah, blah, blah. I thought, oh my gosh, here's this person with this incredible project, which I know is biographical. So like, I have too many emotions. How do I keep those in check right now? And so I felt like there's so many bird references in this show, but I'm like, here I am with this like little baby chick of a project. Don't drop it, don't mess it up. And so I just think what a cool honor, but also how terrifying and also how beautiful. And I hope that came out right.
Marty, I think you're maybe talking, but you're muted.
Damn it, I keep doing that. I'm sorry. I'm just like, but I muted myself when it was muted for the actual performance, and I dropped this stuff. My kids were like, we know you weren't acting when that happened. Because they're so used to me being a dingbat. Anyway, going back to what Jeremy said about Olivia being a genius, the rehearsals were very different because they're on Zoom and because of the nature of the project. And we really got to delve into like thoughts on mental illness and thoughts on everything. And it was such a wonderful experience. And Olivia is just amazingly insightful. I think I learned from her every time, and Kelley as well, and Jeremy is as well. So I don't think I was, but I think everybody else was really, just adding so much to, especially to my role, just thoughts and insight to how to get into the mindset of some of this stuff. And it was really very wonderful. So there you go.
Olivia, I feel like you're a star, and we'd like to just hear, do you have any closing remarks? Again, no pressure, I'm kind of just kidding you, but if you have anything that you were hoping to get to add, please feel free.
So for my closing remarks, sorry, it's not that thing that bothers my friends, but there we go. I would say that this and everything else is a continuation of a project that started out as Miss Kelley's not ideal childhood, so I'm sorry about that, but it evolved into this, like, to use the phrase of a baby chick. It started out as an egg that was at a very vulnerable point. It was breaking, and it was just kind of like sitting there, right? But then I think at some point, when Miss Kelley started to process things for herself, a new sort of idea emerged, and I think that that idea is going to keep growing after this project, and with us and without us. And I think that we are all part of each other's stories now, and that is truly a wonderful gift.
See what I mean?
Indeed. This is a tough act to follow, but you should, Leah, Matea, get in there. Carrie.
Tough act to follow is right. And just a little anecdote. There was some parts during like rehearsals and such where Olivia just kept going, even if like something was going wrong. Olivia just like stayed in character, and it was really incredible. So when we talk about her being a pro, she's a pro across the board. But I think what is so interesting also about this work was that it embraced the process and made that also a part of the show, in terms of whether it was technical difficulties or acknowledging the differences within each performance. And that was something Kelley was actively kind of looking for, was this embrace of lifting the curtain on how we create and how we communicate. And I think that helped make it such an intimate experience when you're all sitting in your own room with a screen, and that acknowledgement of that wall actually removed it. And I think it really allowed people to connect with this incredible story. And that was something that was present, but oddly enough, we kind of forget about, in a way, I think sometimes, about that being a piece of it too. And I just wanted to highlight that briefly.
I think we were, I want to say fortunate. I don't know if it's really the word that I'm looking for. I don't feel like fortunate goes far enough. It almost feels, it feels bigger than that. But that everyone on the team, cast, crew, production team, bought in and said yes. And we made plans, and we changed plans, and we screwed things up, and we fixed them, or we didn't, and we rolled with it, and we supported each other, and but the thing that was most consistent was just the saying yes, and the buying into the mystery, and the not knowing, and being okay, and trusting each other enough to know that we would all work together to get to where we got. One of my favorite anecdote was it was a performance, and I was in the Gibson, and I was up in the balcony in my little overlook, so I could run around to various rooms really quickly as I needed to. And we were having a lot of technical difficulties. And I got I got frustrated and I threw my pen at my computer and like, okay, God, I gotta go solve a problem, and then run off at intermission, and I'm running around, and I come back and I sit down at my desk and I'm like, oh. And Kelley comes up, and Kelley, you just had this smile on your face. And you came up to me and you just kind of put your hand on my back. Don't tell Liz, we broke protocol. But you said, I wouldn't have this any other way. And I knew that already. But hearing that from you in that moment just went, I know, God, this is awesome, isn't it? And we went back to it and we started chatting about what is the closing speech going to be, and what is this, and it just, everyone was like that though. It was everyone kept saying yes and kept moving forward, and we created this unbelievably beautiful thing.
Carrie or Matea, no pressure, but if you want to have a closing remark, this is your time.
I think a lot like what Jeremy said, it was really beautiful the way that there was so much trust for Kelley to be able to share her story and give us the ability to help be a part of it and perform it, and for everyone to just help make everyone a part of the story. It was just a really amazing thing to be able to see and be a part of, and I am really grateful for that.
Well, thank you all so much for being here, Kelley. I do want you to get to have the last word, but what I want to do first is thank you so much, because the painting, I don't know, what's our official name for it?
The mural.
The mural. That Kelley painted for the show is in our upcoming auction. So please feel free to check it out a bit, because it is a gorgeous objet. And thank you so much for your generosity in donating it, Kelley. And do you have any final thoughts to close this out?
Yeah, thank you. I am so grateful for all that all of you have given to me and to this project, and for all of the support and care for this project that Live Arts has given. And so it feels very right to me to show the mural in this way. I think there's a line in scene numbers, never easy for me. It's the later driving scene. I think like Ashley talks about how supported and held and loved in that moment that they felt by their mom, and that is what I felt throughout this entire process by each and every one of you, and all of those who helped make it possible, who aren't here right now, and from Live Arts as a whole. And now I'm getting emotional, and it just brings me so much joy in that emotion. And I too remember that moment where I walked up to Jeremy after that, whatever that happened. I don't remember what happened, but opening night to me felt like the most disastrous performance I have ever been a part of. And then it soared into one of the most beautiful things. And I never wanted to memorize the epilogue, and I didn't know why until that moment, because something instinctual told me that it needed to be reflective each and every performance. And after that night, after Jeremy was able to take a breather and leave us to perform, Sharon can attest to how I cheered every time something went wrong during a performance, because it meant it was real, it meant it was live. And if it had strived, I'm not, this is how Leah helps me. If perfection was our goal, I think it would have fallen flat. And it was that embrace and that struggle that we chose to do, even though we could have done an entirely pre-recorded show. It was that struggle that really made this so meaningful to me and to our audiences, I think. So those are my final remarks.
Those are excellent final remarks. Thank you all so much for being here. This was a really, really wonderful conversation, reflecting a truly beautiful, totally unique, and super special production. And I'm so honored and thrilled that Live Arts got to be a part of it. So thank you again. And this recording will be available on the Live Arts website for free. So you all probably don't need to watch it, you were here, but tell your friends because they can find the link. It should be uploaded by tomorrow. So thanks again, and everyone have a great evening. Thank you so much.